2021 to this session of the 2021 online KBHC experience, an offering of Cormorant music and our gift to the horn community. In this session, we feature James Naigus, lecturer of horn at the University of Georgia, hornist with the Georgia Brass Quintet, and one of the most actively commissioned and recorded composers for horn music today. I'm your moderator, Kyle Schober, Eastman doctoral student, active freelancer, and teacher. Before we jump into the session, a few Zoom housekeeping items. So that we may be able to hear the presentation, we've muted all participants. Please stay muted for the duration of this session unless one of our presenters asks you to unmute. If you click on participants at the bottom of the screen, you should see a participant list pop up with your name at the top. If the name associated with your Zoom account is different from your own first and last name, please click on the blue More button next to your name, select Rename, and enter your first and last name. This will help us know who it is we are communicating with. If you click on Chat at the bottom of the screen, you should see the chat box appear. Comments posted in the chat are affected by the drop-down menu above the text box. Depending on your selection, your comments may be viewed by everyone or by individual participants. Each time that you enter a comment into the chat, please double-check your selection so that your comment is seen by your intended audience. And with that, I'll hand the session off to James.
Well, hello. Hi, everybody. Good to see all of you. Welcome to my session. And just a couple of things before we get started. First thing is, grab your horns if you have them and you want to play. We're going to be doing a lot of playing this session. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And if you don't have your horn, that's fine. You're welcome to sing along. You're welcome to mute it. You're welcome to grab a tasty beverage or snack. It's really up to you, whatever makes you happy. And as far as questions are concerned, feel free to ask questions at any point, especially if it's regarding what we're talking about. Because I don't know, if you're like me, if I wait till the end of a session, I'm probably going to forget my question. So go ahead and ask it in the chat, and then the question will be asked. At the end of the session, we're definitely going to allocate some time for other questions. So if you have other questions, it can be about the session, it can be about anything else that that I'm involved in or that I do, or just any questions really. I mean, I've been doing a lot of baking lately and pickleball. So if you have questions about that, we can save those to the end, but definitely do ask those things. So without further ado, my session is called BAM, Spicing Up Music with Modes or something like that, which is of course a reference to Emeril Lagasse, the old TV chef, one of the first TV chefs of fame, really, who had his famous little spice that he would add to everything just to make it more interesting. And for me, music, the spice of music is modes. So what are modes, right? Those who have been to my sessions before or have taken lessons know that I love modes. I talk about them all the time. I use them in my music. But it wasn't until, honestly, recently that I kind of knew what they were or really put a name to a sound. So at its basics, a mode is a scale, right? And the scales that we know most, I would say, are the major and the minor scales, because that's what we're taught, right? That's what our Western European classical tradition, well, especially around the time in the classical period, that's what we kind of honed into, were these two different scalar systems, because they complemented each other, because we could have cadences and we could have interest and we can have the happy and the sad, the light and the dark. We saw this in art. In fact, music and art and architecture imitate one another in each time period. It's really cool. Think about the Baroque period. Think about the ornamented nature of music. Think about the ornamented nature of architecture in paintings. All of this kind of really interesting tie-ins. So as far as modes are concerned, when I talk about modes, I'm talking about what we call the church modes, which are just a series of different scales based off of different scale degrees, or rather that involve a different set of whole and half steps within our diatonic scale. So here's a list of them. You may recognize some of these names, and we'll go over them and we'll play them together. But just as an introduction, we have Ionian, which is the fancy word, is what we call our beloved major scale. We have the Dorian scale, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, which is our minor scale, and then Locrian. And these and then some other extra spicy ones that we'll talk about later. So one way to think about these before we start playing is if you look at a piano, if you're familiar with the piano keyboard, right? I stole this one. I mean, I appropriated it from piano-keyboard-guide.com, a very apropos web URL if you ask me. And so we have, this is a basic 2-octave keyboard here, right? So if we go C to C on all the white keys, bum, 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 bum. If you have perfect pitch, I apologize, it's probably not the right pitch. Anyway, so this is what we call our major scale, right? We have, again, without getting too theory, we have a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. So if we transpose this and we go to another note to the octave higher on all the white keys, that's a different mode. So D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. That's Dorian mode. E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E is Phrygian mode. And again, it's a way that we order the whole and half steps. So normally we have da-dum, da-dum, these whole step beginnings. Phrygian gets weird because we have a half step to begin. So we can go through all of the different ways to figure out all of these, these basic modes. And that's great, and that's cool. So, but it's easier to think of it in the context of what I call like the clean slate, or C major, or C, right? So go ahead and grab your horns and let's play through some of these so you can get an idea of the sounds of these modes. And so what we're going to end up doing today is we're going to take these modal variants, or these ways of altering or spicing up our major and minor scale, and then we're going to take some simple melodies. And for those that were here last summer, we did some of these. I added some new ones for you. So it should be a little bit more interesting. We're going to take these simple melodies and we're just going to make them very flavorful and delicious. And you can go ahead and see in the chat, you can download a couple of these PDFs so you can either follow along. I'm going to screen share along with you. So if you don't have the PDF, that's okay. All right, so the very first one, and I'll zoom in a little bit just so we can all see okay. So the first scale here is the major scale, the Ionian scale. So we all know what that sounds like, but in case we forgot, let's play it together, okay? So, and this is all just C major, right? Very nice. Very comfortable for many of our ears, because that's what we grew up listening to, these kinds of sounds. Next is the Dorian scale. And you can see, again, when I talked about before between D and D on the piano keys, right? This is the easiest way just to play the mode in itself. This would be D Dorian. But if we're talking about C Dorian, then we have to change a couple of the scale degrees. So you may think this looks similar to the minor scale, and you'd be right. The normal minor scale, as we'll see, has a flat 3, flat 6, and flat 7, while the Dorian scale just has flat 3 and flat 7. So let's play that one together. So you may recognize that from Scarborough Fair or Green Sleeves, What Child Is This? Those types of songs that include this mode. It's like minor, but with a little bit of sunshine in it. Okay, Phrygian scale. So we have flat 2, flat 3, flat 6, flat 7. So again, it's like our minor scale, but we have this really awesome flat 2 to get us started. So let's play that one. And for those of you that have done any theory or solfege, the solfege for the flat 2 is Ra, R-A, which is, I think, the coolest solfege syllable, because I think it's also the sun god or something like that. Anyway, That's beside the point. Lydian scale, one of my favorites. I think sounds more major than major. It's just so bright and happy, and it has a raised 4. So let's play that one. It's a little extra spice. This is used in film score all the time to evoke just excitement, energy, interest. Think of the score to E.T., the very end of it. It's very Lydian. I use this in my music all the time just because I think it sounds really good and it sounds really exciting. Okay, Mixolydian scale. So this one's sometimes called the dominant scale because it's a major scale, but then it has a flat 7th scale degree. So for you theory fans out here, we'd be able to make a dominant 7 chord here, right? A major minor 7 chord out of the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th scale degree. And so sometimes this, like I said, it's called the dominant mode. But let's play it together. This is Mixolydian, C Mixolydian. And I mean, there's a lot of examples of music that use this kind of sound. That minor 7th is a real evocative, especially if we're going that jump. This is a really neat sound. But then again, these are all neat sounds. Okay, the minor scale. Many of us are familiar with this. This would be considered the natural minor scale, right? Not the harmonic, not the melodic, but the natural. So let's just play that one up and down. Nothing too crazy about that, right? And then that brings us to the Locrian scale, which is just terrible. It just sounds bad. No. It sounds weird because we have this flat 5, right? So, which brings us this kind of tritone, this flat 5, which cuts our normal scale directly in half. It's also the interval that was regarded as the evil interval in music, one that you wanted to avoid if you were composing music, or specifically embrace if you wanted it to have just kind of a really creepy sound. So let's play the Locrian scale. And again, these were all the C variants. Now you could play any of these modes in any of the different scale types. You just have to make the requisite adjustments there. There are some other ones that we're going to get into as well, so we might as well play through them now, and that's variants off of the traditional church modes. And that first one is the Lydian dominant scale. We're going to combine Lydian and Mixolydian, so a sharp 4 and a flat 7, and it sounds like this. Which is a nifty sound. Phrygian dominant scale, sometimes called the Spanish Phrygian or klezmer scale, is a Phrygian scale but with a raised 3. So we get this unique interval here, which is the augmented second. And that's a really interesting sound. So let's play that one. You can also think of it as like a minor scale, but the flat slipped down to the 2nd scale degree instead of staying on the 3rd. Let's play that one together. And then, at least as far as the ones that I'm going to talk about today, we have the Super Locrian, which is even worse than Locrian somehow. But everything is flat except for our tonic, and thus our resultant octave above it. So we have F flat, which should be banned in certain situations. It's just a nasty note, and it creates this sound. Okay, so that's in general the kind of some of the modes that we're going to be talking about and applying to our framework, just to spice things up. As you can see, it's a traditional 7-note to the scale with the eighth on top, but we're just changing where the accidentals are. And I don't know, another way to think about modes, and the reason they exist, well, they exist from back when there was a classification, a modal system with Greek, and then they moved it forward. And the easiest way to explain it is, that sounds cool. How do I explain that? So if there's interesting sounds in music, this is something that I'm always fascinated with, is why something sounds interesting or different, especially different to a lot of our Western music trained ears. There's musics of other countries and other areas of the world that have these modes as part of their foundation. A lot of folk music is modal. And so a lot of people grow up with this kind of tonality being normal, right? These relationships. But it just opens up a lot of doors. And in terms of the spice of it too, another way I like to describe it is major and minor are like chocolate and vanilla ice cream. Like, who doesn't, unless you're lactose intolerant like me, which I guess, who doesn't like ice cream, right? Most people do. But why would you stick with chocolate and vanilla when there's so many delicious like Ben and Jerry's and those new Talenti like layered gelatos, and there's a whole world of flavor out there. There's even one I had recently. It was like an Earl Grey tea ice cream. It was really good, delectable. Or Thai iced tea ice cream. They have these little mochi balls from Trader Joe's that you can get. They're so good. Don't get them or else you eat the whole package. Or don't get it unless you're prepared to eat the whole package. Anyway, I digress. So, how can we use these modes to enhance our music, to make it more interesting, right? Well, we just play our music in our different modes. But there's an easy way and a difficult way to do this. The easy way is the way that we're going to start, which is similar to the way that when we first transpose, it's easiest to transpose out of C with no accidentals, right? So all of these melodies here, as you see on the Simple Melodies worksheet, and what I'm about to share are melodies that are in C, and we're going to alter them based on our modes to change. So to start, I will alter some of these so we can see what it looks like with the different sharps and flats. But then ideally, just as if when we're transposing, we don't want to write in every single note after a while, we're just going to imagine what the alterations are and just do it by sight, if that makes sense. So to begin, and also I don't, from a copyright standpoint, I don't own any of these songs, and any relationship to real songs that you may recognize is purely coincidental. So to begin, I think we all know Mary Had Lambs, especially if you've done this with me before. And this is major, right? This is simple. Let's play Mary Had a Little Lamb. Mary Had Lambs in C major, just as written. And then we're just going to mess it up with some modes. Okay? So you can play it at your own speed, whatever makes you happy. But here we go. Beautiful. Very nice. So if we now make this modal, we can change, for instance, let's just say we want to make this minor, right? So if we go back and we think about what the minor scale is, which I think you're all pretty familiar with, right? Instead of no accidentals, we have flat 3, flat 6, and flat 7 in our minor scale. So in the context of C, and you can refer back to the other PDF if you want to see exactly what notes we're going to be changing, that would be E flat, A flat, and B flat. So scanning through here, we have some of those notes, right? We don't have an A flat and a B flat, but we have E's. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select all of our E's. All right, so we're going to just say E, perfect. And this is Sibelius that I'm doing this in. And so any music notation program can work. And now all of our E's are flat. So we have successfully made Mary Had Lambs in minor, or in this case, maybe Mary really did have lambs, but she doesn't know where they went. So let's try playing this now through in minor, or the fancy modal way, which is Aeolian. All right, here we go. Okay, we might as well spice it up with ornamentation too, right? So that's great. Let's make it even more spooky. Let's make this Phrygian mode. So do you remember Phrygian? It was the minor scale, but we add the flat 2. So in the context of C major, the second scale degree is D. So we're going to now take all of the D's in this, and we're also going to make these flat like that. And that's a lot of accidentals, I know. But this is now Mary Had Lambs in Phrygian, okay? And we will play a little faster since we have the idea of how this goes. 1, 2, ready. So it really changes the character of it just by changing one of the notes in the accidentals. All right, I'm going to put that back. Let's do, just for demonstrative purposes, we'll do a few more where I change the accidentals here visually, and then we'll progress into just having to do it by sight. So the next tune here is Row Your Dinghy. You may recognize that tune, again, purely coincidental if it's something you've heard before. Let's do this one in Phrygian mode. So go ahead, and if you remember what Phrygian is, you can say it out loud. Unless you're in a public space, then that would be very confusing. Then say it in your head. And Phrygian mode, right? Sharp 4. So in C, our fourth scale degree is F, and which is in solfege Phi. And so, oh, sure enough, we have some Fs here. So we're going to go select F, make it sharp. Just 2 of them, right? But before we do that, just to compare, let's play this through quickly as written, okay? Bum, 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 bum. About that speed. Okay, here we go. 2 bars for nothing. 1, 2, ready. Very good. If you have a small reservoir of water in your horn like I do, go ahead and you can empty that now. And then let's go back and let's change our Fs into F sharps again. So we just have 2. There they are. Well, there we go. Okay. And now let's try it again, but this time it is in C Lydian. 1, 2, ready. Beautiful. So what if we were to make this some other mode? Let's do, oh, There we go. Let's make this a sad one. Let's do our good friend Phrygian. Ooh, Phrygian dominant? Okay. And we could do a Phrygian dominant. That would be kind of cool. Okay, let's do Phrygian dominant. So, Phrygian dominant is Phrygian, but with a raised 3. So we don't have any 6 or 7, but we do have scale degree 2 and 3. So all of our Ds will become D flats. So let's go ahead and select that. And we might as well also do this too, because cautionary accidentals is something I've learned as a composer are very helpful. We see flat, I see a D flat, my first instinct is going to be playing E flat, right? But nope. It's, oh, wow. Okay, so you decided to jump the ship there. There we go. I'm just going to leave that there because I think it's pretty funny. All right, let's play this through now. And actually, no, let's not do that. Let's just move this over. 1 second. There we go. Okay. Here we go. This is Row Your Dinghy in Phrygian dominant mode. 1, 2, ready. Good sound. Good choice. Yeah, exactly, Matthew. You're right. All right, so we have some other songs here, and we can jump around a little bit. And if you have the other sheet, we have Stupendous Finesse, which may or may not be Amazing Grace. We have Set the Demolition Charges, which may or may not be London Bridge is Falling Down. We have I Plead the Fifth, which may or may not be Tchaikovsky's fifth solo. But let's do this. I want you to have a little bit say in terms of where we're going to go from this. And so I'm going to put up this pick a mode sheet again. And the next one we're going to do, and I'll put it back up on the screen, is we're going to do, how about You're Old? We'll just keep going down the list. We have enough time, I think, to get through all of these. So here's the song You're Old. And I want you to pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, just one of those for now, and go ahead and put that in the chat, and we'll see what the overwhelming or underwhelming majority wants to do. Okay, we got a 5, some 5s, a 7, and 2, 7, 7. All right. You're all gluttons for punishment. 7, Locrian. Okay, well, Locrian wins it. Thank you very much. So here we go. Locrian mode. All you need to know about this one is everything is flat except for C and F. Okay, so all of the other notes that are not C and F, play them as flat. Let's try it without me changing the accidentals and see if you get it. All right? So let's see. So we're starting on a G flat, which is a great note to start on. I love it. Okay, our tempo, da, da, dee, da, will be about there. Okay, I'll give you 2 bars, and the second bar will include the pickup. 1, 2, 3, 1. If someone plays that song for you in that mode, I would be concerned a little bit, maybe. But otherwise, excellent choice. Okay, Stupendous Finesse. Yeah, Ben, exactly. When no one tells you exactly what note to start on and everyone just starts singing it in a different key, sometimes it sounds a little like that. Or Ivesian, for sure. All right, so we have Stupendous Finesse. I'll give you this one again, and then we'll go back to 5 with your choice. So with this one, number 4, let's just do straight up minor. Okay, so Aeolian mode. So remember flat 3, flat 6, flat 7. In the context of C, we have E flat, A flat, and B flat. So these will all be flat. We don't have any B flats, but we do have some A flats. Okay, so let's try that together. Same thing in terms of our count. I'll give you 2 bars, including the pickup. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 1. And I know what some of you wanted to do. You wanted to make that last D a D flat, right? You wanted to make it Phrygian. I could sense it. It was a good choice. Alrighty. I need your help on this one. So again, here's our list. That's not our list. Here's our list. We can go ahead and pick any of the 10. And this is going to be on top of set the demolition charges. So just looking at this, we have scale degree 5, 6, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So Mixolydian probably wouldn't do us very well. Okay. 4, 2, 10. You all like the super Locrian stuff. The Locrian and super Locrian. I mean, I'm all for it. It's a challenge. Gonna make all of us think. I hope you ate lunch today or ate your Wheaties this morning. Okay, all right, we're gonna do 10. 10 wins it. So, do you remember what super Locrian is? Everything is flat, except for, in this case, our tonic, except for C. So, just put a flat in front of everything. Just pretend you're playing an E horn, except for the note C. Right? That's the old trick. Just everything down a half step. Okay. Here we go. So this is actually going to sound pretty normal until we get to the very last note, right? And then it'll be like, oops, that was a clam. But no, it was intentional the whole time. Here we go. 2 bars for nothing. 1, 2, ready. Yeah, just like that. Beautiful. Always strive for beauty in your playing, just like my last note there. Let's do this one more time. Let's do it in Lydian mode just so I can have a little bit of sanity. Okay, so clean slate. Everything's back to being natural except for our Fs are F sharps. All right, here we go. This is number 5 again. All your Fs are F sharps. 1, 2, ready. Very good. Okay, go ahead and empty your water. Take a nice sip of your cold beverage, just as long as you don't then immediately dump it into your horn. We may come back to this one. This is the kind of weird version of Chike 5. I want to make sure we get to the new tunes. Okay, so let's move forward to let's go to the sports ball, which is now sports ball is happening again. So that's great. So maybe you'll hear a few rusty musicians who have not practiced in the last year and a half come out and play this song, and it may sound a little funky, unintentionally modal, as it were. I tell you what, let's actually go back to Sibelius, and I'll go ahead, since this one gets a little bit more complicated, and add in the flats and sharps a little bit. But first we need to decide what we're going to do with this one. And any suggestions, any requests that are not Locrian and super Locrian? Okay, there's a Mixolydian, there's a Lydian, there's a Dorian, there's another Mixolydian, Dorian. Okay, let's do Dorian. That sounds delightful. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over now back to Sibelius here. So think about Dorian, right? Its relationship to the minor scale. It's a minor scale, but with a little bit more color. So here we go. So our altered scale degrees are going to be 3 and 7. Those are going to be the ones that are flat. So in the context of this, right, what is our third and our seventh scale degree? If you said E and B, you would be correct. So here we go. E becomes E flat, and B becomes B flat. Which reminds me of the sign that they used to have at Ogons right before you cross the road, which is, it confuses musicians at first because it says C sharp or B flat, and you're thinking that's not enharmonically correct. But then you said C sharp, like make sure you see well, or you will be flat, as in hit by a car. That's pretty clever. But anyway, okay, so here we go. This is Let's Go to the Sports Ball in Dorian mode. I think this is going to sound really neat. All right, so let's do it about that tempo. All right, 2 bars for nothing. 1, 2, ready. Awesome. Well, let's do another one on that because I feel like we can make this one much, much worse. And let's go full Phrygian on this one, all right? So let's go ahead and let's add a couple things here. Let's go ahead and put that 6th scale degree, that A, let's make that A flat. And then, of course, it would not be Phrygian if we did not have D flat, at least again, in the context of C. Okay, here we go. So yeah, this is the one where either this is the rusty musician trying to play it, or they just ran out of hot dogs. Either way, it's the same amount of sadness. So here we go. 1, 2, ready. Excellent. Very good. Okay, so we have 3 more. Are there any questions, by the way, on these modes? I know it takes a while to just memorize the different scale degrees and what's altered and all of this stuff. And you may be thinking, what's the other application here? Like, sure, I can take simple tunes and mess them up, but but what's next? Well, the first thing is just the knowledge that modes exist and that when you hear an interesting sound, it has a name. I mean, that's all music theory is. It's here's a thing that happens. Here's one way to explain it, right? It's not the end all to anything. It's just a way to recreate and explain why things sound the way they do. Now, as a composer or as an arranger, if you want to achieve a certain sound, modes are a great starting point. So if you're writing an etude for yourself and you want something to sound sad, right? There's your minor mode. There's your Dorian mode. If you want something to, if you're writing a little piece of music, a fanfare, and you want it to sound happy and joyous, we'll say, okay, I'm going to write this in F Lydian mode. F, G, B, sorry, F, G, A, B natural, C, etc. So you have a starting point. You have a set of limitations that you're building upon. It's the building blocks. It's, when you open that package of Legos, that's the mode that you're dealing with, that you're building from. And that's where it can be really useful, as well as just fun, messing up tunes that we all know. Also, if you're playing a tune for someone and you have a clam and they're like, I don't think that was right, you can just say, no, it was modal. You just don't understand. Okay. So our next tune here is called Galactic Struggles. You may recognize it. I don't think we need to play through the normal version, but let's see what one we want to do it in this way. Maybe... Any suggestions? So this may or may not be the theme to Star Wars. So if you ever wanted to hear a weird version of that, now's your chance. I was thinking we could do... I have a call for Mixolydian. You know what? We haven't done Mixolydian yet. And this will sound fairly tame. So as long as we don't get a copyright strike for the similarity to the actual tune, I should have probably made this arrangement a little worse. A few extra notes that weren't quite there. So Mixolydian, right? We have just the normal notes, but then our 7th scale degree is flat. So in the context of C, our 7th scale degree is B. So we only have, one B, huh? That's it. That's our magic note. All right. Well, we better not miss it then, I guess. Let's try it. So, that'll be our tempo, or you can take it at whatever speed you want. Okay? 1, 2, 3. All right, so I took a little artistic liberty in putting that together. Yeah, that definitely sounded like a wrong note, but I loved it all the same. Yeah, a little bit of ouch, but also a little bit of that's cool. So if we, let's take this and now let's make it Lydian dominant, or we could even we don't necessarily even need to make these in the confines of the modes that we outlined. For instance, we can just go and say, okay, we're going to make all the Fs sharp, right? And then that's beautiful. And then we also, for some reason, we want to make the A flats, or the A's flat. So we're going to do that too, assuming it'll let me, just for fun. And then we want to change one other note. What note do we want to change, and what do we want to change it to? You can just go ahead and pop a D flat. You want to add a D flat in there too? Ooh. Ben, I like that idea. Let's do that. This is going to sound lovely. Okay, so let's find all of our D flats here. Oh, missed one there. So we have a little Phrygian dominant going on. Make sure you play that E natural. And then we have... Oh, come on. There we go. All right, I think we're almost there. I think we got it. If I miss something, then... Oh, there it is. Nope. They just keep changing back. Oh, no, there's another one. Okay, I think we did it. Good job, team. Let's play it. Let's do this one a little slower, just so we can embrace the full disaster that this is going to be. Okay. Make sure you empty your water. You do not want any water gurgles disturbing this masterpiece. Okay. And 1, 2, 3. All right, very good. missed this F sharp there. That's my mistake. If you caught it, then you get the bonus points. Alrighty. And then this song, draw me like one of your French horns. I think you may know this little tune. So this may or may not be from a big blockbuster movie from many years ago. Kyle, you want to hear this one in Phrygian Dominant, do you? Okay. Just for you. We're going to do this one just for Kyle, all right? Because he's so awesome. So let's go ahead. Phrygian Dominant, D flat, E natural, A flat, B flat. Do you think we can do it without me writing in the accidentals? I think we can. Let's try it, okay? So all of your B's become B flats. All of your A's become A flats. All of your D's become D flats. And the rest is as written. All right, let's try it. 1, 2, 3. Is that how you thought it would be, Kyle? Does that make your heart happy or sad?
Perfect. I'm so much happier now. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, boy. Okay. So, and then the final tune that we can do together, and then maybe we can move to some Q&A for the last little bit. And I do see one question, the Mixolydian. What does Mixo do to Lydian? That's an excellent question. I think the terminology goes back a little ways. I mean, because there was originally some different ways. There was like Dorian, and then there was Hypodorian, which was the kind of the dominant of that. There was Lydian and Hypolydian. I think there was Phrygian and Hypophrygian. So that was one way that they called the different modes. As far as this one, I'm actually not entirely sure. So that would be a good thing. That's something I'll have to look up. It's an excellent question. Maybe if you can look it up, you can let me know. But for now, we'll just say it spices it up, right? Alrighty. So we have one more here, and that's G to G. So let's just play it in the normal way, just so you can see what the song is. I think you may recognize it. Okay, so here's our tempo. All right, let's play this one together, if you'd like. 4 beats for nothing, including the pickup. And 1, 2, 3. Okay. For those that are musical fans, you will definitely get that one. Again, a similarity to the song. Certainly, I did not steal that song. Alrighty. And now let's mess it up by, let's see, we could do Locrian. We'll do some Locrian. Let's do some Locrian. So again, I'm not going to put in the accidentals, so you'll have to fill it in on your own. But if you remember Locrian, leave the C alone, leave the F alone, everything else is flat. So it's going to sound very interesting. Here we go. Let's do it a little bit slower, okay? Ba-dee-da-da, about that speed. So first note is E flat, and then G flat, and then yada, yada, yada. 1, 2, 3. doesn't have actually. I'll tell you what. For those that know the musical, that is a little apropos for the actual song itself in the context of what's going on, for it to be a little bit spooky. I mean that's really it. We could go and do all of these and all different kinds of modes or scale variants. And these modes are just the tip of the iceberg, really, when it comes to just interest and doing something different with scales. If you really want to dive into it, there's a number of different things that you can do. Other jazz scales, other Carnatic scales, like Indian music. There's all different kinds of rags. There's all kinds of different things, scalar-based stuff that we can do. And it's something that not only spices up music, but can spice up just your general technique practice. For those that were there from my Winterlude session, we took these modes and we changed our etudes around a little bit. So we made Kopráš a little bit modal. And a plug, too, for just a couple things. Jeff Agrell has a book that's called Harmony Kopráš that has the Kopráš reimagined in different scalar and modal systems. And it's really mind-bending and a lot of fun. I also have 2 etude books that are modal based. So if you want to play more in those kind of fun realms, one is Approaching Atonality. It's geared towards, it's a progressive from like most tonally accessible to least aurally familiar, and especially good for younger students if you want to introduce them to these unique sounds and modal sounds earlier on. Because typically we have the music in our horn repertoire that's modal, or at least towards atonal, is very difficult in technique. There isn't a lot of beginner or accessible materials that have these unique sounds. So that book is for there. I also have a recent one called 20 Modalities that are just little flavor pieces. You could use them as recital pieces. They're mid to low register legato etudes. I kind of took inspiration from the Shoemaker legato studies, especially the low clef switchy ones, and wrote a series of those that are in all different modal types. And then towards the end of the book, it gets away from specifically one modal type and is just interesting, hopefully. So you can go there, and there's other modal etude books out there. Sometimes we steal from trumpet and trombone and whatnot. We can find those materials. Or the best thing you can do is make some of your own, right? You have these modal systems. Combine these with some of Paul Basler's etude recipes. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to his session. It'll change your world. You will become an etude chef of the ages, just as he is. And you can write your own etudes in a really easy and accessible way, and make them modal and make them fun. And so that's what I like doing, and I think you'll have fun doing it too. So with that, that's kind of what I have for you today. And if you have any questions, I see Julie has a question. Feel free to put it in the chat. We can open up the floodgates to any questions, whether it's related to this session or etudes or composition, or in this case, baking. How did I get into baking? My recent thing was just out of lockdown boredom. And I'm like, well, I got to do something. So why not perfect a cinnamon roll recipe and make a lot of friends along the way? Because I can't eat all of that bread, or else I would just be gigantic. So I would make some and then give the rest away to my friends. So they were a fan of my baking habits, but baking, like music, has recipes. And again, go to Paul Basler's session to find these musical recipes. It's genius. It's really cool. So yeah, any other questions about modes or composition? Or I hear some. Kyle?
Yeah, we've got one. Jeremy wants to know if you have a favorite mode for your compositions.
Oh, yes. It's a great question, Jeremy. I'm a big fan of Lydian mode. And again, I think I describe it as more major than major, because major is usually defined as being happy, right? But Lydian just has something even more colorful to my ear about it. And that's the kind of cool thing, that I definitely don't have synesthesia or anything. I don't see colors, but I like to think in shades of light and dark in my music. And certain modes have brightness and vibrance, and other modes or scale types or even just key areas have a certain darkness to it. Like D is dark, but D Dorian is a little bit lighter. F is pretty light. F Lydian is very bright. Those kinds of things. And that's my perception. But that's the great thing about music is that your view and your perception might be different. So, my least favorite mode, I would have to say probably like Locrian or Super Locrian, because honestly, the context is not that usable in music. Because at a certain point, if you think about it, Locrian mode from B to B on all the white keys, is it in Locrian or is it just starting on the leading tone into C? And I don't know. It gets a little weird, but I won't prejudice the modes too much.
And slightly related to that, Elizabeth wants to know, is there a mode that just makes you feel meh?
All of them when I haven't had enough coffee.
And Ben, what's something cool that you listened to lately?
Something cool that I listened to lately. Oh gosh, that's a good question. I might have to get back to you on that one. What I listen to is just a hodgepodge of so much randomness. Like I'll go from one track to the other in my car, and it'll go from like 80s synthwave to a Jacob Collier track to the recording of the National Symphony playing Shasti 5. I mean, it's just like this weird eclectic mix of stuff. But that's kind of who I am and who we are as musicians, is, I say, a summation of our musical experience, right? So what we listen to, it's like you are what you eat, but from music.
And then Steve would like to know if you ever compose or improvise only using the black keys on the piano.
That is a great way. If you would consider yourself to have zero pianistic ability, but you want to just jump in and play, if you play on all the black keys, especially if you add piano, they complement each other so well, because it's the pentatonic scale, which is like the proto scale. And you can play anything, you can root on any black key, play any of the black keys, and it sounds really nice. And so that's a great way to improvise. And so if you ever just suddenly, you're at a restaurant and the lounge singer chokes on a steak or something, or the lounge pianist chokes on a piece of steak and you have to jump in, there you go.
Perfect. And Veronica says she loves your description of the modes. For example, Mixolydian was evocative and Dorian was minor with sunshine. And she's wondering if you have a descriptor for Phrygian.
Phrygian. Creeping. But not creepy, but creeping. Maybe.
Great.
The flat two. Well, in certain contexts. Actually, when we did the, what do they call it? Let's Go to Sports Ball. There was a moment there where we had a D flat major arpeggio, which is a very cool sound. And so that was a very non-creepy Phrygian sound. But it all depends on context, yeah.
And probably our last question for now. Heidi wants to know if what compositions are you working on now?
Ooh, you want me to spill all the juicy details. Just a couple things. Nothing really big right now, but I'm working on a second set of miniatures. So I have my 9 miniatures, which was for horn and piano, and I started writing a second set of miniatures. They're pieces that are aimed at being technically very accessible, but harmonically and musically interesting. So anyone of any skill level, both horn and piano, will hopefully be able to play them and enjoy playing them.
All right, excellent. That all sounds really amazing. And thank you very much for your presentation and your expertise.
Oh, well, thank you. And thank you all so much for joining me. This was really a lot of fun to make some music with you today. And I hope you had a good time and a couple laughs along the way.
Okay, so with that, thank you all for attending this session of the 2021 online KBHC experience, an offering of Cormorant music and our gift to the horn community. Please join us at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for Alexander Technique and Fundamental Principles with Stasia Sienna, certified Alexander Technique teacher based in Central Illinois, who is currently an artist faculty member at Roosevelt University's Chicago College of Performing Arts and teaches private lessons in person and online. In the meantime, please check us out on our various social media platforms. You can subscribe to our YouTube page by searching for Kendall Betts Horn Camp. You can also find us on Facebook using @KBHornCamp and Instagram using @official_KBHC. Anytime you post about us or share something we posted, please be sure to include the hashtag KBHC2021. Finally, please visit us at horncamp.org for more information about our upcoming online and in-person offerings. Thanks so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.